Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast with your host Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We've spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we can have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Now, finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life. Now, sit back, turn up the volume, smash that follow button, and get ready for this episode of the On Purpose Investor. What is going on Purpose Investor Nation? I am Eric, your host, and I am super excited to have you here today at the On Purpose Investor Podcast, where we are diving into another episode of interviews with some serious go-getters. These folks that we've been having on our show for this season have just been going and getting it and crushing their goals and crushing their dreams. And today we have a very special guest from Warner Robins, Georgia, who happens to be a good friend of mine that I met years back. And we're just super, super grateful and honored to have Chris Peisher on the show with us today to talk about his journey, how he got started, where he is today, where he's going, and he's got some good things in store for you. So without further ado, Chris Peisher, welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast. Good to have you here today.
Well, Eric, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been great to get to know you over the last few years. And just very excited to see what you guys are doing and really support all the content you're trying to get out there. You have a great podcast, and you know what your mission is the way that people need to hear that. You know, you're doing a great job getting it out there to them, and I know that they're going to start changing their lives. So I'm honored to be here and to be a part of what you're doing, just a real small part of what you're doing. So definitely, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. So,
well, you know, that just speaks a testament to one of the most important things that I feel is that there is about real estate investing, or anything that anybody really wants to be successful in, and that is network, and that is maintaining healthy relationships with those that you value their opinion, you value what they do. You see successful people, you surround yourselves with them. Your network is your net worth. At the end of the day, net worth is meaningless if you're not happy where you are with it and the people you're surrounded with. So network is absolutely important, and we're so glad to have met you a few years back. So, and thank you for the shout out on what we're doing here at On Purpose Investor, trying to breed and teach hyper intentionality in everything people do with their lives, whether they're real estate investors or they're trying to be the absolute best police officer in their precinct, or no matter what they're doing. We want people to live their life on purpose. That way they get to the end of their journey of life and they can look up and say, I have no regrets. I did it on purpose. And that they just live their life with so much clarity and intention. They have no qualms with how they spent their life. So thank you for that, Chris. I want to dive in. Let's go ahead and get these listeners into listening mode and figuring out who you are. First thing first, though, when people ask, hey, what's your name and how do you say it? I love the way you explain it, because your last name it looks kind of questionable when you look at it on paper, but will you explain how you teach people?
I love that. Yeah. So, when you have an odd looking last name that gets mispronounced often, I learned like in middle school to figure out a way to tell people how to pronounce it. Because we would have people calling my house asking for Mrs. Pizza, Mrs. Peitzer, all kind of weird stuff. And I just said, look, it's pretty simple. It's Peisher. Like, would you like some pie? Sure. And you just smash those two together and you got Peisher right there. So that's the easiest way to remember. Would you like some pie? Sure.
Absolutely. Difficult to forget that.
Well, good. I'm glad it's memorable. That's an achievement in and of itself. Yeah.
I love it. So, Chris, where do you invest, and what do you invest in?
So great question. I have been just very, very focused since we got started in 2005. We are 100% single family homes. I will caveat that with, I do have a note on a small multifamily, like a duplex, that we finance to another investor. But what we own and keep ourselves are all single family homes, all within 30 minutes of where we live. They are all long-term rentals. And so that is our focus, is long-term single family house rentals. And we have been just so blessed by that intentionality to stick in that one lane that we just kind of that's what we gravitated to with the people that we listened to, the educators that we listened to, all of them who branched out into other areas, hotels and storage units and apartment complexes and commercial spaces. Not that any of those things were bad. All of the people that we listened to, and that's not to say that those were the only people that we could have listened to, but all the people that we listened to and gravitated toward eventually always came back to the single family house as one of the most stable, profitable, and beneficial long-term investments. And so trying to get out of my early adolescent ignorance and have to figure everything out on my own. I actually did gain some wisdom in my 20s and started listening to people who had been through and made mistakes and started saying, well, I don't want to have to make those same mistakes, so I'm going to stick with what they say for now, and let's just see how it works. And so that led us to just sticking only in single family houses and becoming real experts in acquiring, fixing, managing, and in some cases we sell, but really in what we've cracked the nut in is managing the single family house business at scale.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that just because that was what our mentors told us to do. They said, stick with single family houses. If you want to branch out after that, fine, but figure that out first. Now, again, not to say that's the only thing to do, but that's just where we zoned in. That's where our intentionality was to be successful in the single family house space. So
And so you narrowed down your buy box right out of the gate. You had an idea, a clear idea of what your portfolio might look like, and you eliminated shiny object syndrome, the hey, look, a squirrel. You eliminated that right out the gate, and that's so important to do. There's
yeah,
so many people. I'm in quite a few different digital masterminds out there where some of them have several 100,000 folks in them, and they're like lost dogs in a park, and just, oh, should I wholesale? Oh, should I syndicate? Should I go buy singles? Should I buy condos? Should I do short term, mid term, long term? And the advice that's given out there is sometimes it makes me wary, because they're like, well, which one makes the most money? And, or which one can you do the easiest? Or, there's all the sexy buzzwords in real estate investing, which is easy and a lot of money. And
yeah,
those two things rarely come to fruition at the same time, or even in a quick time.
yeah.
It is a slow game, and it takes a lot of persistence.
I'm glad you said it that way, that it's a slow game. And and a couple of questions that you mentioned there that those people are asking, like, and I think fundamentally those are the wrong questions. How do I
Mm-hmm.
make the most money? Well, that's not really the right question. What's easy? Well, I don't think that's far from the right question. I think there's better questions to ask, and we can get into some of
Yes.
that later. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, there's a lot of shiny objects out there, and you can be successful at almost any of them, but in almost every case, it requires focus on
Yeah.
one thing until you get good at it and then moving on. Or if you hit the right number of brick walls where you're like, okay, really, this may not be the right thing for me right now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe later. Perhaps I need to shift, but I would do that with the counsel of other smart people before you just make a jump from one strategy to another.
Right. No, no kidding. And I know you mentioned that y'all have perfected the landlording process at a large scale, and I'm going to circle back to that because I know you
Sure.
have something really exciting to announce. But are you fully a real estate investor? Is that your full-time job?
No, actually, I work as an engineer. I work as a program engineer for the government, and have done that since 2009. And so all of our investing prior to that, I was an engineer before I started working for the government. I've been an engineer since 2002, but I built or excuse me, since 2003. I built our entire investment portfolio and our entire business while working a full-time job, and I still do that today. And I really enjoy my full-time job. I love the organization I work for. I love the missions that we support. I love the people I work with. I like my boss. I like my boss's boss. I like my third line supervisor who's way up the chain. So yeah, everything that we've done has been with that as the backdrop to it. That I really enjoyed my job. So yeah, so we could make a full-time job out of it for me, but between Sarah and I, we put enough hours in to the business so that it's very fruitful. But we're able to run it part-time for
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. There's a big push out there, and it may be just a little cycle of instructors and masterminds and different groups you might be in to leave your job, to create that full passive income and leave your job. While that may be an end goal, I think it's most important to be very clear up front, do what you love and love what you do, and make sure you just have a roadmap that leads you to that vision of your dream life.
That's right.
And if that dream life at the end of, what you're doing says, I absolutely love doing what I do as an engineer. I also love buying houses and being a landlord. And I also love riding ponies at the rodeo. So those are the three things I'm doing in
Yeah.
my dream life. And then when other people say, "Well, why are you still working? You got all this passive income." You know,
Yeah.
you can you don't have to answer them. That's your prerogative to answer, but you can answer very confidently and say, "I love it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it." So,
Well, and it's like with most things in life, why do you do this? Well, because the benefits of it outweigh the cost of it. So when it comes to a job, we've been at the point where I could leave the job, for many years,
hmm
but the driver to leave is so low. And like I said, I love the people I work with, but what's important about it and what's so empowering is to have the freedom to not show up if I don't want to not
yeah,
have to go in. And that makes it so that when I am working, and it's a fundamental mind shift, and it was amazingly powerful when it really happened. Like, I'm here because I want to be here. So when I
right,
come in and we have an issue and they need help, I'm there with my best self, no grumbling. I'm there because I'm happy to help. I'm bought into that mission with my job. But I can punch out of that, to use an Air Force analogy. I can punch out anytime I wanted to, but I
right,
like the missions that we support, and I'm there because I want to be there. And I think that if you were to ask my supervisors and the people that I work with, that they would detect that when I'm there and when I'm working for the government, which I take a lot of time off, but when I'm there, like, I'm there because I want to be there. So
yeah, and you give them the best version of yourself because it's a choice to be there.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Amen to that. So, circling back now, so you've been working that full time job. You and your wife have been part time, full time investors um, for better on what 20 years almost now. Well, no, 10
Getting
years.
getting close to 20 years. So we started in 2005. So we're in our
Mhm.
18th year.
Okay.
So we started 2005, right? There was a couple years leading up as I was kind of getting spooled up and learning how to do stuff. We bought 3 rental houses while we were still living in an apartment shortly after we were married. We got married in 2003, started buying rental property in 2005, bought 3 rental houses in Macon. And then my wife, the whole time was like, well, don't you think we should maybe buy a house for us too? And I was like, oh, yes. So after we owned 3 rentals, we finally bought a house for us. And then we
Yeah.
just kept that habit up. And then the crash happened. And, so that was a rough time for everybody. We made it through the crash, ended up buying all the way down and all the way back up. And we still buy
Yeah.
today. We're very picky about what we buy, much more picky today than we were 15, 18 years ago. But, we made it all the way through,
Yep.
relatively unscathed. There were some tough times there, and I listened to a guy one time. He said, you really want to take business advice from people who have known in the past what it's like to lay awake at night wondering how they're going to make the next payment on something, and who know what it's like to hustle through that and get out the other side. And so, not that I ever wanted to be there, but I've been there. I've
Yeah.
been in that place where it was tough. I had vacancies and we were just hemorrhaging money, but we made it work. We lived through it. We didn't declare bankruptcy. We made it through. It was tough. Our
Wow.
credit was intact, but it was tough, for some of those years.
And that's a testament to your tenacity, to be successful in it. And with that end goal in mind that gave you the fuel in your fuel tank to just keep going. And with the hyper intentionality focus, right? So we're going to get into that. But before I do, like I was saying, you and your wife, Sarah, have been doing this for almost 20 years, and y'all have learned through trial and error, through mentors, through probably a lot of cruises out there, how to be a good landlord. And there are a lot of great mentors out there, a lot of great teachers out there on landlording. But I think you have a unique spin to it that is really going to be attractive for our listeners. Can you tell me a little bit about what programs you have coming out?
Appreciate you asking about that, and be like, the what we're coming out with is basically, it's a description and a roadmap and really an operations manual with with a lot of documentation on how to do what we do in the rental property business. And whether you manage single family or multifamily, it really kind of applies across the board. But our book is going to be released soon. We don't have a release date yet. We're in the final writing stages of the last chapter, and then we're going into editing and finally publishing. So we expect in the next, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks that we'll have a launch date very soon. So, but the book is called The Automated Landlord. Our website is The Automated Landlord. So you can go to theautomatedlandlord.com and sign up to be notified when our book launch happens and when our courses come out for that. But really that whole process is about, I've been so disheartened watching landlords get almost there and then quit because it's just overwhelming. You know, they can't get help to fix things. They can't figure out how to get tenants to pay on time. Every time a tenant moves out, they wreck a house. And we struggled well through those same issues and were able to get to the point where we could systematize nearly every aspect of the business. And I use the term the automated landlord, and many of our processes that are super frustrating to other landlords happen in my sleep. You know, when I'm on the
Hmm.
beach or when I'm on a cruise or when we're in our RV across the country, they happen automatically. And some of those things are software systems. Some of those are processes that we have in place that with part-time employees that follow our
Hmm.
processes and our order of operations. Some of those things are um, tenant related in nature that our tenants and our other clients do while we're, you know, doing the things that Sarah and I love to do with our family. So that, I feel like we've kind of gotten to the place where, you know, there's a philosophy with rental property management that you can have overarching, like, well, this is what we're trying to achieve or what we're trying to do, who we're trying to attract and to do business with. And then there's also the boots on the ground, the rubber meets the road aspect of that. And we've married those two things, I think, very well in our business and gotten it to a point where it's not only something that works well for us, but I could hand the system off to somebody else and say, if you simply do these things with very minor tweaks for who you are, then you can replicate that. And so that's what
Hmm.
our book, The Automated Landlord, is all about, and what our course, The Automated Landlord, is all about. So those things will be coming up very soon. So if anybody wants to, you know, be notified about that book, we'd love to connect with you. And it really applies not only to people who have rental property who are on the cusp of kind of getting over that hump and making it easy. It applies to everybody. I talk to
Yeah.
landlords who have 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 houses, and they tell me a few things. And I was like, hey, would it help you if I could free up 10 hours of your week with, if you just spent $50 a month and I could tell you how to free up 10 hours of your week, would that help you? And you can just watch their body language go, oh, how would you
Oh
do
yeah.
that? You know, and then, so it applies to people who manage hundreds and to somebody who's got maybe 5, 10, 15. They're kind of in that, what I would call the property management teenage years. They're a little awkward. They're trying to figure out how to crack that nut. That's where there's a lot of stuff that if you do it now and you correct what you've got going forward, it'll really make a difference in how you feel every morning when you get out of bed and get ready to attack the day and go handle your portfolio. But also for the people who have never bought a rental house and who have this fear mentality about, I don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night to fix a toilet. I don't want to have to deal with somebody who moves out and I've got a $10,000 rehab and I've only got $8,000 in the bank. How do I fix that? So it's really for anyone who's ever considered being a property manager or owning their own rental property and having that be their intended path to financial freedom. And so if that interests you, if that seems like something that, you know what, I would like to learn how to do that so that I start my journey correctly with the right blueprint for the cart and the horse to get us down the road. Or if you're there and you're struggling with some specific things and you want to figure out how to fix that, or you've got a business that's already to scale, but it's consuming your life and it's doing the
Hmm.
opposite of what you wanted when you first started, when you wanted financial freedom, and now you may have some financial freedom, but you don't have the time to take advantage of it. So it's really
Yep.
for anybody along that entire spectrum and anywhere in between to get involved in it and to get some knowledge and some tools and some systems and some philosophy about how to do and how to achieve what it is that you really want to achieve in life, which is not only financial freedom but time freedom. So if that idea appeals to you, if you're interested in that, we'd love to connect with you. Again, it's the automatedlandlord.com. You can go there, just quickly enter your email address. You know, we're not going to like spam you for anything. We're just going to make you aware of the things that we're doing that I feel like would be valuable to you, not because I'm going to make money on them, but because it's what I'm doing to give me and my wife and my children and the other people that we work with freedom to do what they want, be where they want to be, buy the things they want, but more importantly, to smile and have happiness and joy, knowing that they can do things for other people, as well as their own families. So yeah, so that's kind of it in a very large nutshell. Is we want people to be able to get to the life of their dreams, and also to enable the dreams of others around them. That's kind of one of my big philosophies in life, is making sure that you're not just living for yourself, that there's some aspect of what you do that is about helping the people around you, I think.
Amen to that. Y'all, there are a lot of gurus out there that are teaching fake stuff. They have a lot of knowledge on a content or on a topic, and they go out there and teach it, and they upsell it. What they are is they are incredible salesmen. I think like the gypsy travelers back in the day, and they, the people that would sell the potions and whatnot. Those are your carpetbaggers, in my opinion. Chris is the real deal. He is absolutely not that. He is someone that is genuine at heart. He's a God-fearing man, and he is someone that have felt blessed to have a friendship with, and even a mentorship with throughout these years. And just happy that he is sharing the wisdom of what he and his wife have built. And if you're going to drop a couple hundred, couple thousand, tens of thousands of dollars on education, I don't know what his program is costing, but I promise you, you can't afford to not do it. Okay, that is the real deal. Whatever price he names, you need to pay it, because I mean, if you're just getting started, you need it. If you are 20 houses in and you can't leave your house because you're tied to your desk, because you're clicking on all these task bullets just to make sure that your tenants are happy, you need this course. I mean, my wife and I, Tiffany, have a great system, but I cannot wait to take the automated landlord to figure out how to refine some of the skills that we've built, and maybe even learn a nugget or two on, okay, you're working 12 hours a week. Let's get that down to 8, or let's get that down to 0. Work 1 hour a month and just check in on things. That's what I'm looking forward to with the automated landlord. I cannot wait to buy the book. Can't wait to take the course. Can't wait to sit down and talk about it. So that's coming soon. Chris Peisher's the real deal, y'all. Now we're going to
Right.
drive into the main section of the On Purpose Investor podcast show, where we like to ask some questions of our guest. And just, I want to hear a little bit about your beginnings, your humble beginnings, and how can we help our listeners that are aspiring to be in your shoes, and how can they get there? So our first question is, when you first got started, I know you talked a little bit about how you and your wife started figuring out investment properties, and you rode the wave of the '08 crash and all that. But what was your motivation? What was your main motivation?
So that is a great question, and I love to tell this story, with the caveat that the story's not over. Obviously, me and my wife are still here, and we're still living, and we are navigating this journey together, and it is ongoing. But I went to school at Georgia Tech, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and while I was there, I was really involved in campus ministry called Christian Campus Fellowship. And when I graduated college, I was offered an internship as an associate minister at the Christian Campus Fellowship at Georgia Southern. So I went down there in August 2002, graduated college, went down there. I met my wife the first day I was there. We just had a lot in common. We were both just running really hard just to try to be the best we could be for God, just to try to figure out God's will for our life. And just as a result of that, we ended up dating. We met in August, we got engaged in October of that year, and we were married by June the following year. So by the time we got married, we'd known each other only 10 months. And we've been married, it will be 20 years this coming June. So just super fun times. We just had a great marriage, and looking forward to many more years of that. But we got married with the intent, like I said, we were running as hard as we could to figure out God's will for our life and just to follow him wherever he led. And at the
Mm-hmm.
time, we really felt led to be missionaries. She was going to be a missionary a year after we had met, meaning that she had plans to work one more year and then go be a missionary. She met me, and then we both wanted to be missionaries. We wanted to work a little while first, and then figured out that if we wanted to be missionaries through the Southern Baptist Convention, we needed to I had to go to seminary basically, and then get kind of retooled, and that was going to take some years. And during that time of kind of figuring out, okay, do I want to go back to school to be a missionary through the Southern Baptist Convention? That was kind of a tough call for me, because I really did not want to go back to school. And then realizing that having to go back to a 2 to 4 year seminary degree was pretty challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that time, we started thinking, well, I'd always been interested in being an entrepreneur. I'd, cut grass in high school and always been in some kind of business or another. as a part-time investor or as a part-time businessman, just as a young child and in my adolescent years. But we started thinking, well, we could either go and be missionaries right now, or we could build a business that would send 10 missionaries or 15 or 100. So God's pockets are really deep. And, wherever you
Mhm.
fall on religious spectrums, whoever's listening, I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to preach my religion to you. What I want you to hear is the why in all of this is that we felt like God was leading us to do a certain thing, and that through that journey we felt like we were uniquely situated with our motivations and our abilities and our background to get to a place where we could give something back to the community more than we could give individually, that we would be able to
Mhm.
build a business that would send many people and enable many people. And so I'm happy to say that now we do that. We contribute to
Right.
several ministry organizations, and we love our contributions there, and our plan is only to increase our giving exponentially in the next few
Yeah.
years and as we go down that road. But we started with the idea that we do this not just for our own appetites, which there's nothing wrong with wanting a better life for yourself, or wanting nice things, or wanting to drive a
Yeah.
newer car, or wanting to live in a nicer house, or go on nice vacations. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We just always internalize that that shouldn't be the only thing that motivates us. And so, in
Yes.
addition to wanting to be the kind of people that enabled um, the spreading of good news, both from a biblical standpoint and just from just being people that spread joy wherever we went. That
Mhm.
was one aspect of it. The other aspect of it was that we did want that freedom. We wanted to have the choice to go and do whenever we wanted to for however long. And I actually just adopted somebody else's way of putting this. We wanted to be able to go wherever we wanted, stay as long as we wanted, buy whatever we wanted while we were there, and come back whenever we wanted. And just enjoy that level of freedom. Now that's a nebulous kind of like global goal, and
Yeah.
it's could be huge depending on how big your appetite is. So you have to be careful having just that kind of broad goal, because you can get sucked into a life of just absolute consumerism.
Yep.
But that little snippet kind of helped put it in perspective that we want the best for ourselves, the best for our families, so that we can enable the most joy in the people around us. So that's kind of, that's a really long-winded answer to that question, but our why was not just about our own appetites. It was about giving back to the world and to our creator, what he had invested in us, kind of the parable of the good steward. We wanted to take the little bit that we had been entrusted with, and we wanted to multiply it into the world. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And it's so unique to hear that God led you to do real estate so that you could give more and spread the good news. Uh, Funny thing is I was lost when I became a real estate investor,
Oh,
and
really?
I found God through my success, through the success of Tiffany and I, in the miraculous success we had. It was like there's no explanation. There's no way this thing happened and this thing happened, and it's just random that we are finding success by chasing our dreams through this venture. And I couldn't keep ignoring it. And
Yeah.
so I I finally was like, okay, listen, I'm giving it up. And then when I let my hands out and I opened my arms up, I was receiving so much and I was giving so much that I don't know, my life just exploded with this internal, I don't know, it's a hard thing to describe, but I just love that God led you to be real estate investor to spread the good news, and real estate investing led me to God. And
Yeah.
it's a really crazy thing. And
That's a neat
honestly,
thing.
it,
Yeah.
it was my wife that steered me in the direction of God through real estate investing. She took my eyes and said, "Stop looking here, look over here." And it's like, "Oh, wow, I see it." So,
That's beautiful.
yeah,
That is a beautiful thing.
it's been amazing, and I'm so glad that I'm a real estate investor. It saved
Yep.
my life potentially. I mean, it did. It just saved my life.
Yeah.
All right. So when you first got started, and you did just answer that, did you have a detailed roadmap of where you're going, what kind of properties you're buying? You were super clear at the very beginning. No shiny object syndrome, no hey squirrel, look at that, no, I'm gonna go buy a barber shop in the strip mall, and I'm gonna also buy a KFC. There was none of that. It was single family rentals in this area, and this is my buy box. These are what the houses are going to be. And
Yeah.
you probably, it sounds like, and you may have realized this later, that we're going to buy B and C properties to begin with because that's what we can afford and we're going to stick to it. And then we're going to exchange them later. or did that happen at a later point, or was that the plan from the very beginning?
So great question. So I want to back up and say that I was not completely immune to shiny object syndrome. I've always kind of evaluated things in terms of a return on investment standpoint. And so when we were getting started with real estate investing, we bought our first couple of rental properties, and I was feeling like, oh, we're making progress. I got 3 rental houses. I was feeling kind of big about that.
Hmm.
Other interests for people like me, like engineers, that we dabble and we like to tinker with things. And I was interested in fish tanks and stuff like that. So I made the totally poor decision, and I won't bog too much down with details, that I love saltwater fish and I love corals. So I was going to try to build a coral selling business. So I was going to buy these little tiny corals, grow them out, and sell them to local fish stores and turn that into another stream of income. And so it wasn't a super expensive lesson, but it was about a $3,000 lesson in focus. So
Yep.
I'm glad that I wasted that money, because it taught me that, okay, that was like a 8 to 10 month distraction of dealing with all of those things that I could have been putting into our business. And so I just considered that was what we call a seminar in the streets about
That's
how
right.
not to get distracted, about how to have that focus and how to stay away from the shiny object syndrome.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
that one little experience then shifted us, okay, 100% we're going for houses. And
Hmm.
we left open the possibility of, multifamily or other commercial stuff. But like I said, everybody that we started listening to just said, focus, focus, focus. And so we just
Cool.
stuck with that. And at the time, we did what was easiest to find. And we were young, we didn't have a ton of money. My wife was working, I was working. We had good credit. We could have bought bigger stuff, but I luckily found other investors who were trying to sell deals to me. Hey, pay this money and I'll give you a rental house that rents for $600 a month, and you can pay $30,000 for it. And that sounded good to me, so I bought 3 of those. And then I got to realizing that, what, this guy who's selling this house to me, he's doing a lot less work over a lot less time, in terms, like, he's making a lot more money for his time.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to learn how to sit on his side of the table. I wanted to learn how to be the deal finder. So the first 3 houses we got from a wholesaler, and he's still around today, in my hometown. He's a nice guy. We don't do business together anymore. He's in kind of different businesses now. But um, that kind of gave me the motivation to say, well, I may or may not want to be a wholesaler necessarily, but I at least want to get to the point where I can find the good deal first. And that way I'm, in a manufacturing term, I'm controlling more of the supply chain. I'm not just relying on one person to get the deals from. I wanted to learn how to go find the deals. And so that's when I decided to get retooled a little bit and spool up a we buy houses kind of business. And so that's what I did locally. We started marketing for we buy houses and doing postcards and things like that to find deals. But we definitely stuck with the houses. It was
Yep.
always trying to find houses. And the boot camps that we went to, or the classes that we went to, and the local investors that were our mentors here, most of whom, actually all of whom, we still have great relationships with to this day, all had the kind of life that Sarah and I had envisioned, where they basically had all the free time that they wanted, and they all did it with primarily single family houses, which then led to some other things that they got involved in, like private money lending, which we also do. But
Hmm.
they their main business was single family houses, because they could do a little bit of work up front and then get years of income out of it, income that was inflation hedged. You have all these benefits from houses, and that's what all these
Yeah.
guys that we've been listening to were talking about. It's like the single family house is an amazing investment. If you just read an IRS tax return, you see what
Yeah.
all of these benefits from owning a single family house, and it is staggering,
Yeah.
all the benefits you get. And it's not like you're cheating the tax code. It's right there in the forms, and it's right there in the code that say, do these things, and these are the deductions you get, these are the benefits you get, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and they do that because it stimulates the economy even further. And having good quality housing for people is good for the economy overall, good for Uncle Sam. It's good for all the American people. So having a small slice of that, we're contributing a little bit in that regard as well. So
Right. So many golden nuggets in that little bit you just said, from networking to relationships to understanding the tax benefits to understanding the benefits of a house in general. Pete Fortunato does a great job explaining the benefits house. If you are a
yeah,
YouTuber, go YouTube Pete Fortunato, the benefit house, just to hear him explain it. You might have to watch it 30 times to get it, but
yeah,
he's it's the benefit house really brought it to my attention, like, wow, it's not just cash flow. That's
Yeah.
just a little bit of it. That's just a little slice of it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that little section there, man. I love your wisdom. I love that you're sharing it. Let's drive on to the next section. Um, when you when you first got started, you had a good head on your shoulders. Obviously, you're engineer. You went down to Georgia Southern to find a dame that you married, and you got married. You bought some rental properties. What was your mindset like? And I've got a few particular areas I'm going to ask about your mindset.
Mhm.
First of all, what was your mindset on time and money when it comes to scarcity versus abundance?
So this is good because I actually had a lot of growing to do in this area. I started out, kind of feeling like there was going to be competition over good deals. And, keep in mind when I first got started investing, it was like in this huge boom in real estate. And so everybody and their brother, me, one of them, was getting involved in, the real estate game one way or another. And so when I got started, I got myself out there and really started competing for the deals and getting in that space. Um, and even though I had at the beginning a mindset of scarcity that was like, I've got to beat these people, beat these other competitors to the door, what I ended up finding is that really and truly, you very rarely will bump heads with another investor. And then I listened to a local investor say this one time, and and I don't remember exactly how he said it, but it kind of blew my mind. It was like, okay, well, if we're both interested in this house, why do we have to fight over it? Why do we have to compete over it? Instead of you and me saying to the seller, well, I'll give you 100, well, I'll give you 101, I'll give you 101 and a half, I'll give you 103. We're hurting each other, and we're the ones who are going to deal with this for a long time because the seller's going to get their piece and move on, and we want to do them right. But the better way to do it is let's figure out a way to work together. Let's collaborate instead of compete. And then this is another thing, you mentioned Pete Fortunato. One thing I just love the way he puts this, and I've tried to make this my mantra for years. It is, if you spend your life recruiting allies, you'll find that you have a lot of joy in your life and things become fun. And now we spend our time looking for activities that are ELF. They fit the ELF model. They're easy, lucrative, and fun. So if it fits ELF, then we're after it. And so back then we kind of started getting the beginnings of that kind of mentality. Like, okay, let's recruit allies. Let's recruit allies who can teach us, allies that will loan us money because we found a good enough deal. And so I started out with a scarcity mentality and have over time come to the realization that there's plenty out there. There's just no way that we could all bump heads on all the deals out there. It's far better for more of us to be out there because then there's more people to become allies with. And
Yeah,
so instead of thinking all these people are my competition, all of these other people out there are my potential allies. And if I reach out to them and we do good business together and I like the way they do business, I like the way they conduct themselves, I like their reputation with other people, then then we have potential for a long-term relationship. And over time and over years, you'll find that you gain much more happiness out of life recruiting allies versus having a scarcity mindset and feeling like you need to claw on to everything that might come your way. One of the most tangible benefits of getting away from that scarcity mindset is that when you have a feeling like if you don't do this deal, somebody else will get it, you tend to be emotionally committed and in many cases to the wrong deals. You'll make bad financial decisions, decisions that will haunt you for years to come
mm,
because you felt like you needed to do something because you felt like somebody was going to take it from you when in reality it may not have been that great of a deal to begin with. And if you had
yeah,
simply brought somebody else in to collaborate with you on it, you might have been able to get a better deal for everybody involved, you, your collaborator, your ally, and the seller. So
yeah,
that has changed for me over the years. And and I would say, and still in some regards, I still have to fight that. Not necessarily with real estate, just because we definitely have an ally mentality, but in some regards, I still fight that battle every day. I feel like there's some things that God wires into us to kind of keep us in check. That we have to say that, well, I'm not a perfect person, because if I was perfect, I'd have no need of help and other allies and friends and relationships. So I feel like there's a lot that is to be gained from recognizing that there's probably always going to be areas that I could see more growth and perfection in. So, yeah.
yeah.
So I would say early on, I definitely had a scarcity mindset, but I changed that over time. So
Yeah. And to just put a little bit more microscope on it, your scarcity was in a fear of losing,
that's right.
is what it sounds like. The fear of missing out.
That's right.
And the abundance was, I'm going to shift. and do what Leon Johnson told me this a few weeks ago. If you help enough other people get what they want, you will get what you want. And
That's right.
the world is going to give you what you want by helping enough people get what they want. And it sounds like, just a different way to say that of I'm going to build this army of allies,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do my best to help them get what they want. And I'm going to do my best to be a team player, because at the end of the day, this is a huge team sport. Gary Johnston, that's one of the first things he says at his seminars. Real estate investing is a team sport.
That's right.
We're we're all in this for different reasons, but at the end of the day, we can't be enemies. There are definitely going to be the mafias out there of real estate investing that want to do all the things, but I think it's very important to do like Chris says, build that army of allies and drive forward. But that scarce mindset of fear of missing out, the fear of not winning, shifted to I'm going to help a lot of other people win with me, and we're going to all
Yeah.
win together. And so that shift, it's so big, it's so important too.
Yeah.
How did your relationship with money change? Because when people get started investing in real estate, for the most part, we're pretty broke, or we're just, we're making it, but we're not wealthy.
Yeah.
And then there's a shift. And then now we have to become good stewards of money. We now have to be wise. We now have to be responsible. So how did
Yeah.
your relationship with money shift?
Oh, great question. So to cast back a little bit, when I was very young, and I started cutting grass, and I remember, I'd cut grass and get $20 for cutting somebody's grass. I this is going to sound really, really stupid to a lot of people, but I would actually get the starch, an ironing board and an iron, and I would iron my money until it would be perfectly flat, and I would stack it all up because I liked accumulating it and how it looked. And I would be penny wise. I would not spend it on frivolous things. I didn't go out and buy gum and candy, but I would be what's a lot of people would consider pound foolish. Like, and it was okay to be that when you were a kid. I wanted to go buy remote control airplanes or remote control cars or something like that. But I remember from a very young age, like ironing money and wanting to keep it and trying to collect it. And then, I didn't iron my money when I became an adult because, you don't really get paid in cash when you're an engineer.
Be a lot of
So
ironing.
yeah, no, yeah, there'd be a lot of ironing, right? So what happened was that I started, we listened to Dave Ramsey a lot. We paid attention to his books. We listened to, there was that guy out of Atlanta who had the radio show in Atlanta. Oh, I can't remember his name now. The consumer
Clark
guy,
Clark
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 Howard.
Howard. Yeah, Clark
Yeah,
Howard.
we listened to him, and so we started getting educated on how to be a smart consumer, and then a smart saver, and then a smart investor. And I remember reading Rich Dad Poor Dad in college, and it really changed my outlook on a lot of things. And then we started trying to really live that Rich Dad Poor Dad lifestyle as we had our early adulthood, before we had kids, and as we started buying rental property. As we shifted our mindset from the old school ironing my money and watching it sit there until I found some fun thing to buy it on, it became okay. Now I can really consider things from the long-term perspective. I can take money I've got now and I can put it into something with the expectation that one day it will really start paying back. And when I look back over those years that I would iron money, what I was really adopting a lifestyle of delayed gratification. I would save my money until I had something fun to put it in. And
Yep.
it was a big ticket item, a $200 remote control airplane or something like that. Well, when I
Oh
became an
yeah.
adult and we started investing, it was we would save up enough money, or we would develop enough banking relationships to buy a house that we would have to kind of maybe potentially feed, or maybe get a couple $100 a month in cash flow from. We might have a big repair every now and again, but eventually that would really pay back. And so
Yep.
developing the mindset of the long-term delayed gratification really helped us just push through those tough, like I said, awkward teenage years of owning rental property to get to the stage where the investments really started to pay off.
Yep.
And so that our relationship with money and our mindset went from, consume, have fun with it, with buying toys and fun things, to, okay, let's push money out. Let's not buy brand new cars like all of our other married friends were doing. We still, to this day, and I'm 46. My wife is, she's 22. I'm just kidding.
Yep.
She just had a birthday. I'll let her tell you her age one day. But
Happy birthday, Sarah.
She she's out shopping right now for her birthday present. But we never have bought a brand new car. In fact, the
Mhm.
newest car we have ever bought was, gosh, I think 6 years old. That may change one day in the future, but we our frugality with that was not like we were being stingy. It was like, well, instead of buying a new car, let's put that money into houses. Let's put that money
Yeah.
into building a business. And so, a lot of our investment wasn't just in buying a house, it was in getting retooled and setting up business systems, setting up advertising and reaping the benefits of the advertising. And even that, in many respects, is a long-term investment. You can't just always just pour thousands of dollars into marketing and expect to get it back right away. It
Yep.
takes time for that to happen. And so we developed over time that delayed gratification mentality, and have learned to continue that on, because it's not just about us at this point. It's about our children. It's about, hey, we might live a lot longer than we originally anticipated. There's lots of medical advancements and AI that may come together in the next few years. We have to anticipate that there may be a need for money for a long, long time, and we want to make sure
Yeah.
that we're continuing to have that mindset. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And I love that you mentioned delayed gratification. That's one thing that in the early seasons of the On Purpose Investor, Tiffany and I preached a lot about is we're gonna create this Care Bear. We're gonna create this teddy bear and sell it just to remind people and call it the delayed gratification Care Bear. And that
Yeah.
anytime you want to go buy something that it can truly wait, go grab your teddy bear
Yeah.
and give it a hug.
Oh,
Just
that's good. I like that. That's good.
because I mean, I drive a 22-year-old truck. My wife drives a, you know, 10-year-old minivan now. She upgraded. She got a minivan because we got
Yeah.
two little children now. So, we got the minivan but, when I go to all these army trainings every now and then and the folks out there, I do my best to try to educate them when I go there because they'll get deployment money or they'll get a reenlistment bonus or
Mhm.
they'll run into a big sum of money and they go and buy a car. That's just one of my pet peeves is they go buy a car with $5,000 down and get a 26% interest note, and it just
Oh my
drives
gosh.
me crazy. Yeah,
Oh,
I am in the
that is soul
I'm in the
crushing.
middle of figuring out a mini series for soldiers right now
Yeah.
on how to find financial literacy and to prepare yourself for financial stability,
Yeah.
when you reach, the end of your enlistment or the end of your career. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm in the I'm in the middle of trying to process that and trying to figure out how to educate them. Just it's so not cool to be so broke,
That's
especially
right.
when I have a thing out there. It's not cool to be broke, and it's all about people buying things they don't need to impress the people that they don't even like. So,
I'm so glad
ugh,
you bring that up again. And especially as it comes to cars, you and Tiffany have the same mentality we do. Our newest car now is, I've got a 2007, we have a 2005 sedan, and we have a 2010 van. So our newest car is 13 years old. Now,
yeah,
our RV is a different story, a different exception to that.
hmm
And we still didn't buy it brand new and got a great deal buying it used. But so many people sacrifice so much of their financial future buying a brand new car. If they would just wait just 2 years, or
yeah,
not wait 2 years, but buy a 2-year-old model car, they would be millions of dollars ahead financially by the end of their life if they would just buy a two
absolutely,
year old car every time instead of a brand new one. And we were buying 4 to 6 year old cars at the time we were buying, or 8-year-old cars.
yeah,
So there's so much in that little slice of that graph where that depreciation rests. If you'll just not
yeah,
not sign up to take that hit in depreciation and instead put
yeah,
that money into your investing, you will be millions of dollars ahead by the time
yeah.
you retire, and be able
And
to
if you
retire
just
much earlier.
Yeah, if you just contributed, like, what would the difference between that note be between this
Oh
two-year-old
yeah,
car and the brand new car? And you go ahead and say, okay, it would have been $800 a month if I bought the new car, but
that's
because I
right.
bought the two-year-old car, it's $650 a month. Go ahead
Yeah,
and take that $150 and start contributing it into a Roth IRA or into some type of investment, place, and see what it does because you're going
yeah,
to be absolutely astounded in 30 years. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's some of the concepts that I'm really going to try to teach these soldiers and just military personnel out there. They're ignorant and it's no fault of their own. The financial literacy is not taught, and in high school it's not taught, and the majority of our enlisted personnel come right out of high school and they're
That's
just
right.
not taught this financial literacy. And my goal is to create a million millionaire soldiers. So
Oh, I
that's
love
that's
that.
what I want to do. I want to create wealthy enlisted and officer personnel in the military.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's,
that's something.
you mentioned another thing there I want to kind of tease out a little bit is that, when you take these guys and girls that are right out of high school and they get this lump sum of money, their sign-on bonus or whatever, or
Yeah,
any other kind of lump sum of money that comes to someone, and of course, lottery winners are
poster child of it.
they're the poster child of that. Money doesn't fix problems. And that is
Yeah,
one of the biggest myths that people have about money is that money magnifies problems.
yeah,
It can magnify benefits, but it will magnify problems long before it magnifies benefits. And so what you see is that people who weren't good at managing $1,000 a month, who all of a sudden get $20,000, they do the same thing with that 20,000 that they
yep.
would have done with 1,000, which is consume it, as opposed to putting it someplace where it will pay them back 10 or 20 fold over the next few years. They'll
Or
take that fast nickel over the slow dime.
yeah,
So
or an investment that will pay them for the rest of their life,
exactly,
even if it's a small amount. You do that many times over, and you have a large amount, and it never
that's right.
ends. So, all right, Chris, I'm so glad we talked through some of that, the relationship with money, the scarcity and abundance mindset. We went through your roadmap, your objection to shiny objects, even though you started growing corals in your basement. People have done worse things in their basement, so
I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm glad you weren't on the CNN
Yeah.
the
No
main
kidding.
page
No
back in
kidding.
2005. And then how you got started in your main motivation. Just love hearing how God led you to do this. And now I absolutely cannot wait to see how the automated landlord is going to lead other people, possibly to God, like I was, or possibly to financial freedom through real estate investing and just doing it on purpose, doing it with intentionality. There were a couple more questions we were going to go through, but we're going to jump right now to the conclusion and we're going to do our fast five. Are you ready, Chris?
I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, what advice would you give to our investors who are trying to get started today?
Best thing you can do is to go be around other investors. That's the number one thing I can tell them. Go be around other investors locally, and then go to don't seek out some 10, $20,000 guru necessarily. Not to say that you may not be able to get good education from them, but I would be willing to make a small investment in your financial education and specifically your real estate investing education. Go to a class that, once you talk to a few other investors, is highly recommended.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I would recommend is invest in your education and invest in those relationships and start building a team of allies. That would be the first thing I would say is educate and allies. Yeah.
All right. Question number two. Do you have any YouTube or podcast shows that you would recommend to our listeners?
Obviously, yours is a great one. So they're already signing up for yours. I love the Hal Elrod podcast. I've recently, like in the last year, got was made aware of the Miracle Morning, and so I love
Mm-hmm.
that Miracle Morning book. I love the Miracle Morning habits, and I really enjoy his podcast. It's usually fairly succinct, and it is just a good way to get your mind in the place where you're both happy with where you are, but you can comfortably have dreams that stretch you into a better tomorrow. So the alternate of that would be, well, like, I'm so unhappy in my current life that I have to have these goals that get me out of this miserable situation. And you may have miserable circumstances, but that does not mean you have to be a miserable person, that you don't have to be sad and depressed all day. And so I recommend the Miracle Morning and the Hal Elrod podcast for that, just so you can be happy today and also stretch yourself toward a better tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and start doing those morning routines. What's the name of those that morning routine?
The
Do you
Miracle
know?
Morning. Yeah.
Yeah, the miracle
Oh,
morning
Savers.
routine.
Yeah.
Savers, that's right.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
savers for a little while and I should still be doing them. I need to get back on the Hal Elrod train and get back into it because when I was doing my savers, your day is so productive and you win so much in the first 15, 20 minutes of your day that
Right.
failure, it doesn't come to your mind. It doesn't come to your thoughts. So,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Go sign up for Hal Elrod's podcast. Absolutely. Number three, if you had to pick one book that you feel made the biggest impact on your life, what would it be?
So I can't answer that question without saying the Bible. Um, but I have to give a second book. I would say between the Bible and Rich Dad Poor Dad. So the Bible
Mm-hmm.
gave me my foundation, and everything that is good in my life came from my Savior and my God. And I hope that my life is spent giving back both in honor of him and to the people around him to help serve the people here on this earth.
Yep.
And I believe that the Rich Dad Poor Dad book gave me a roadmap for a way to do that with abundance. And I will be very clear, you do not have to be rich to serve God. You don't have to be rich to dedicate your life to serving people. For me, I felt like investing and building a successful investing business was the path that God intended for us, and that we have seen just amazing benefits for ourselves and for those around us. So those two books, the Bible and Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'll throw a third one in there just as a bonus, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's just a great book.
Yes. I
So
love that one. Anytime I have a longer than a 2-hour plane ride, I read The Richest Man in Babylon.
that's a good one.
I have
Yeah.
to print it so that I can because the PDF version of it is so small. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Number 4, what do you feel has been the secret sauce to your success?
I just don't quit. I just don't quit. I did some really stupid stuff as an adolescent and had to just, you know, grit my way through it for a couple of years. Had to grit my way through the downturn in real estate. And 2012, I signed up for an Ironman triathlon, and there's no way to get through that training and to get through that event and get the medal at the end without two things: and having a clear vision of that, of how you want to finish, and just gritting through the work that it takes to get there. So there's going to be a period of just big sacrifice for people. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. They don't have to be the kind that you'll regret. We built our business, and I never missed a soccer game. I never missed a kindergarten graduation. I never missed an opportunity to be with my children at an important point in their life, or even for some of their daily stuff. And we're very blessed now that I'm able to spend a lot of time with my children. But the grit to get through those years where it's lean, where you're feeling like you got to scramble a little bit, you've got to sacrifice. You can't just go sit down and watch Netflix whenever you want to. You've got to give up some stuff. But I think most people can find, if you will actually do it, you'll give up stuff that doesn't really matter. The TV shows, the golf, the square dancing, whatever hobby it is, you can give up that hobby for a little while now, so that you can gain far greater benefit later. So just the grit to get through it. And then having a vision for how you want to finish. And that's one thing I talk about a lot, is like, what do you want the end of your life to look like? And visioning that. What do I want people at my funeral to say about me? What do I want them to be thinking about me? And do I want them to be sad, or do I want them just to be overjoyed that they knew me? So thinking about the end, beginning the journey with the end in mind, it makes it all worth it. Makes the grit possible. Makes all that possible.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that we try to breed here at On Purpose Investor, is planning your life and just being hyper intentional about that. Chris, our last question here before we go: how can our listeners get in touch with you or follow you on your journey?
Yeah, so easiest way is the automatedlandlord.com. Just go right there. You can sign up for updates and just kind of hang out with us there. Get ready for our book launch. We're super excited about that book. I just really, I'm not writing the book to make money. I'm writing the book to change people's lives for the better. I want other people to be able to have the joy and happiness that my wife and I have had through real estate investing, and specifically in single family houses, but just in rental property management in general. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with us. There is a little contact us form there. And and that's about all there is on the site right now, because we don't have a book to sell. We don't have a course to sell. We just want to get out and meet people and spread a little joy. So that's it. Yeah.
Amen to that. Chris, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here at the On Purpose Investor podcast, talking about your journey, where you got started, where are you now, where are you going. Love the things that are to come out of the Peisher household. And to see this Automated Landlord. Cannot wait to take the class in person or on Zoom. So y'all, if you don't go to the Automated Landlord, either when you get done driving or when you get done listening to this podcast, maybe you're sitting on the toilet just jamming out to On Purpose Investor. Who knows what you're doing? I don't care. But what I do want you to do is go over to automatedlandlord.com and sign up right now. Chris, I can't wait to see you again. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for spending time today. It has been a pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you, Eric. We appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get all the latest updates. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review wherever you watch our podcast. All right, now go smash that subscribe and follow button for more tips on building your dream life. See you next week, Pathfinders.